having ADHD, it's like a very well-known fact that like we are very rejection sensitive. And so
Yeah.
anything, not even real rejection, but even if we perceive something as being rejecting, it's
Yeah.
like I have to like really check myself if like I feel like someone's like making fun of me or if someone's criticizing me. It's like it's taken a lot of work to like regulate those emotions.
Is
Mhm.
how much of your ego is coming up here? Because,
Ooh.
like, when you're accepting feedback and you're defensive and you're just aggressive and you're just like going at them, like, whoa, calm yourself and then like do a little deep breathe and say, okay, this isn't me. Like, this isn't
Mhm.
actually how I respond because you responding that way, it really is not you. You're not in your best aligned self. You are
Mhm.
actually from your ego, your shadow self, whatever you'd like to call it. The conversation will go so much smoother and be so much more dynamic and constructive when you can actually just talk back and forth and be receptive and be open.
Mhm. Mhm.
But this also requires a lot of compassion, empathy, understanding. And so people with ADHD or who are creatives generally have this quality, which means it can be very difficult for us to work with humans who don't necessarily have that quality or maybe are not dialed in or tuned in as much, right? Because
Mhm.
creatives are super dialed in with their awareness.
I overthink, I overshare, and I overanalyze. So come explore with me as I chat about business, life, and relationships, all through the lens of an anxious creative. Ashley, welcome to the Anxious Creative Podcast.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
I'm so excited to be. I mean, we did this so impromptu, which is like completely my jam. The more spontaneous, the better my life. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, honestly, when I texted you, I was like, hey, do I need to prepare? No, don't prepare for anything. Just show up. I love that because to me, it's like to have an authentic, original conversation just feels so aligned. Honestly, for me,
Yeah.
it feels so. I totally appreciate that.
And to be like in theme. Oh, I'm gonna like change. There we go.
Oh,
Better.
ooh.
To be on theme with my podcast, the more time I have to prepare for something, the more anxious I get.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Are you someone who gets anxious? I mean, you're a creative, you're a brand and web designer. You made
yeah.
my beautiful website, which let's just do a
Yay!
shameless plug here, donbradley.com. Go check it out.
Yes, check it out. It's
Um,
beautiful.
it's so amazing. Like you kicked it out of the park, knocked it out. I'm the worst
Yeah.
with saying. You really knocked it out of the park, and I feel like I like it. I don't even know what I envisioned it looking like, and it's so kick ass.
Oh,
But as a creative so a lot of people that listen to this podcast are in the beauty industry or are creatives, and I f I wonder if there's a correlation between, like, you're not just making a website or a brand that someone then chooses to buy, you're connecting with someone, trying to understand their vision, and
yes.
also letting you do your thing, kinda similar to hairstylists or beauty pros that it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I don't get to just, like, do hair and someone decides if they like it and then buy it. I have to try to, like, listen to this person communicate who's not in my industry, who doesn't know the lingo, who doesn't have the same understanding, and still try to decipher it." Does a lot of anxiety come with that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've struggled with anxiety for I would say like the last 5 years, kind of I had more of that come on for me.
Mhm, mhm.
I do take a lot of time to really reflect. So I journal a lot. I kind of like do things that will help me navigate those situations and like those seasons of life, right? Because like I truly believe that we're always going to experience these seasons. It does like not every day is going to be great. Every day like it's going to be different. Your emotions are different. Every day comes with a different feeling. Maybe you have, encountered somebody who just kind of rubbed you the wrong way, your energy is off now, so me, because I have to obviously deal with a lot of people all the time, I tend to in the evenings I will do yoga or I will do some deep meditation. I do a lot of breathing. So
Mhm.
honestly, a lot of that sort of stuff mitigates some of the anxiety. It doesn't ever completely go away, but
Mhm.
it helps manage it in a way that I'm able to kind of move through my day in a way that I am feeling more aligned, I would say.
Yeah. Did you find, and I know, I mean, I go on tangents all the time, but, like, I sometimes wish I could go back to not knowing. what
Yeah.
anxiety was. Like, I look back on my life and I'm like, "Oh, that was clearly a panic attack." I had no freaking clue. And,
Yeah.
like, different scenarios, but, like, there is this, like I now understand the phrase "ignorance is bliss" because the more awareness I've had
Mhm.
around what's what even anxiety feels like in my body, it's
Yeah.
like the more awareness you become more aware, and then there's more of a focus on it, and it's like trying to find the balance between, like, recognizing, understanding, experiencing, and expressing, but
Yeah.
also, like, how do you not let it consume you?
Well, I mean, honestly, my biggest suggestion or way to deal with that is to completely just surrender to it because
Mhm.
more like honestly for me, the more I push that down, the more I don't deal with that, the more shit just bubbles and bubbles and bubbles until it actually starts spewing out into places where you actually aren't in a safe environment at that point. You know, you're spewing out stuff that's like, okay, this has bubbled so much now that I actually am dealing with it at a point where I'm not actually safe, where people around me, like in the grocery store, or if I'm out with a friend that, I'm just trying to have a good time or whatever. So for me, if I know that something is coming on, I actually will literally excuse myself from being with my partner or my child, and I will go into my room. I will literally put on a meditation. I will cry. I will cry, cry, cry for like an hour. Okay. And I will actively allow myself to go into almost like an anxiety attack because I know it's coming. I know I need to
Mhm.
just feel it and I need to release it. And after that, I am so much better because
Mhm.
sometimes you can't get rid of it at times. And I love like a more holistic approach. I do meditation, I do yoga. So I do try to, take those tools and really utilize them to try and
Mhm.
manage. But I never shove it off. I never shove it down. I deal with it because you don't deal with it, it's only going to create and come out somewhere
Oh.
that's unsafe for you and then you don't feel good, you know?
Mhm. It, like, comes
So,
out in the ugliest ways with the people you care about most,
yes,
right? It's like
yes,
it's
yeah.
never I mean, sometimes I've, like, freaked out or, like, in the car, right? Like, road rage or something.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you say that because, like, literally this summer was the summer of healing for me in a lot of ways, and I, like, like, would walk around my house with my journal, and anytime something
Oh,
came up that sparked an emotional reaction because I learned through the course of my life that, like, feeling big feelings was not
yeah.
okay, that I wasn't allowed to have big feelings, that my reactions were I mean, and I have ADHD, so I am, like, definitely more emotional
Yeah.
on on the good and bad side. Like, there are no I don't believe in negative emotions, they're all emotions, they're telling us something about
Yeah.
ourselves that we need to explore, and so my therapist is like, "Get curious." Like, instead of, like, feeling ashamed of feeling a certain way or trying to, like, only seek out joy and happiness, like, what if you really got curious about, like, why are you feeling sad right now? Why are you
Right.
feeling angry? Why are you frustrated? And so I would literally like sit down and journal, like, where is this coming from? And I was able to peel back so many layers on myself and
Yeah.
understand myself in a way that I never have known before. But case in point, like, I think it was beginning of this week, I had my therapist always goes, does the emotions match the scenario? And I'm like, oh, that's
Yes.
a really like, I'm having a really
Yeah.
big reaction to so and so saying this to me, but like, it's not about what they said to me.
Right.
It's about something deeper. Anyway, so, like, I sat in the bath and I was like, "Ooh, I don't like this feeling," and I was like I literally caught myself going, and, like, shrugging it off, and I was like, "No, I need to feel it." And I just, like,
Yes.
sat in it, which was so
Yes.
uncomfortable because 'cause I've never been taught to actually feel it through, and I had, like, a
Yeah.
big cry, and mine only lasted maybe, like, 2 minutes of, like, big, big cries, and then it's
Yeah.
gone, and it feels so
Yeah.
much better.
Oh, honestly,
So
I love crying. I am a big crier. Okay, so like I'm crybaby. It's fine, but like I have accepted that I cry. At least once to two times, sometimes three, depending on the week. And honestly, I believe that it is such an essential part to just the releasing you need in order to show up better for yourself, for better for everyone
Mhm.
else too, right?
Totally.
It's a release, it's a debrief. Like just like you would,
Mhm.
go be at work and you'd be talking with somebody and maybe you need to debrief after. It's your
Yep.
debrief, right?
Yep.
So but it's your debrief for yourself. And
Mhm.
just coming back to one of the things you said that I kind of like had a spark here, but like just in terms of understanding your triggers, like even when we're talking to our partners. And there was this one time I was outside with my partner and we were having a fire, and he said something to me and I got like so um aggravated. I was like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like it. And
Mhm.
like went away and went inside, and something from my past came up. And I was like, okay, I reacted this way
Mhm.
because of the way somebody else in my past responded to me.
Yeah.
And then I responded to my partner like that. And so I ran
Mhm.
out. I ran out to him. I was like, hey, babe, I'm like, I know what just happened. I have it. And I'm so sorry, but I need to tell you, like, I reacted because this triggered me so much. And,
Mhm.
we talked through it, and my anxiety and my safeness, like my anxiety went down, and my actual like safety, like my emotional safety went up with my
Oh,
partner.
totally. Yeah.
He was able to bring me and make me feel like, okay, I understand.
Being able to bring someone information and not have them take it personally or take defensiveness, but just
Yeah.
take understanding is like, whoa. And also being able to regulate your own emotions where it's like not because I've been in like, I mean, if we're going down the relationship road now, I've been in a lot of codependent relationships that I didn't know were codependent. And this is, I'm not just talking romantic relationships, friendships, family members, like
Yep.
codependency that was unaware codependency where I didn't ever learn how to regulate my emotions myself. I went from being coddled and enabled emotionally, very independent, like in other ways, but emotionally never learned how to regulate my emotions or self-soothe. And so that's been like a toddler kicking and screaming inside of me. But talking
Yeah.
about like getting like activated by something someone says and being like, wait a minute. I watched this reel the other day and it said, when you get into those moments where you feel reactive or you want to react or you want to like, bring up your defenses or like put your guard up, ask yourself, how old do I feel right now?
Ooh, I love
Yeah.
that.
And
I
then
love.
also, like, coming up with the memory too.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, it's these types of moments, though, even going back to, I wish I wasn't as aware. And like I honestly even tell my partner that sometimes because I'm like, I wish I should be frigging oblivious again. Like, please, where I'm just not seeing things or feeling things. And I recognize something in myself that was the difference between being vulnerable and being sensitive. And I, as a human, am very sensitive to people, to things, to environments. So now, as an adult, knowing this about myself, having ADHD myself, I do not put myself in environments where I am going to be triggered. You have to have the
Mm,
strength to say, no, that's not for me. And I'm removing myself and I'm getting the hell out of here.
yeah, right, and, I mean, this is like an ADHD side tangent.
Yes.
But then I saw a thing where they said there's a difference between vulnerability and transparency, and
Mhm.
people really commend me on my vulnerability, which is because I think the things I share transparently would be things that would make other people feel vulnerable. But they
Yes.
don't make me feel vulnerable. And so I can really convince myself that I am a vulnerable person when I'm, like, so freaking guarded, it's ridiculous, but I'm very transparent.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
like, the things that actually make me feel at risk and exposed are,
Mhm.
like I actually really should explore what I think my, like, threshold of vulnerabilities may be different. I don't know,
Yeah.
like, I can talk about my past, my failures, my mistakes, my
Yeah.
missteps, but, like, to talk about I don't even know. I don't know what makes me feel vulnerable. Probably talking about how I feel currently is hard. I can talk about my past, no problem.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I think we tend to like kind of like hide that part of ourselves because whether we
Mm.
feel like it's, I don't
Yeah,
want
I
to
can't show
seem.
my cards to everyone right now on the podcast. Like, what really makes me feel vulnerable? No thanks.
No, and I think it's honestly commendable when we can actually come forth and actually be like, hey, this is what I'm feeling right now. It does help you even convince yourself that it is
Mhm.
okay to sit in that emotion or just
Mhm.
understand that you're feeling a certain way and to talk about it. I know for myself when I journal or I do yoga or I do meditation, sometimes that's just not enough. And so I do go to therapy. I
Mhm.
have for multiple years. And I do think that, I actually don't know. that you didn't deal with shit until you actually go to
Oh
therapy.
my
And then
god.
you're like, oh yeah, there it is. There it
Yeah.
is.
I had someone once tell me that they're like, "I've gone to therapy and they never tell me something I don't already know." And I was like, "Interesting."
You know, well,
Really?
I've heard the other one where it's like, well, when I go to therapy, all I do is cry and it's not working. And I'm like, the girl is she's working her job. Like she's
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, it's taken me I've been going to therapy since I was 18 off and on, and then I've been, like, pretty consistent since 2016 because and I mean, I don't think, like I mean, I've had some really shitty things I've gone through, but I think self-awareness and self-development and knowing yourself more is such a flex, and it helps you be a better person in business, a better friend, a
Yeah.
better partner, like but and I was talked about this last week on the podcast with my friend Rachel, was like I think there's like this movement around people are like trying to bypass like over therapizing things and also using things as crutches rather than like we also just need to like cuz we need to just live our lives. I'll get so focused on like okay, I need to work through all the shit in my life so I can just get to the place where I enjoy life. But the
Yeah.
reality is life is like ups and
Yeah.
downs.
Right. Well,
But I'm
and
like, "No, no,
it's
no, let's get through all the bad stuff." So then when I accomplish something or like I overcome something or I come to an awareness about something, I'm like, "Okay, cool, what's the next thing?" It's like, "Wait, I just need to chill."
that's totally true. And I think like as somebody who is always continuously working on themselves, like I'm sure you're the same. I know just, having worked with you for some time now, like it's like you're always working on things. And I know my partner, he is so good at being able to be like, Ash, you don't need to fix yourself anymore. Like
Mm.
you
Oof.
you were good. You were good the
Okay.
way you
Yeah.
know, and it's like sometimes you have another person that can kind of like they can bring that to your awareness and then it sits and it hits different. Like when somebody tells you you aren't too much. You don't need to be fixed anymore.
I was just gonna say
You
being
know?
in a relationship and being enough, it's like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah. And I think it honestly, I think a lot of this stems back to and I could talk about this stuff all day, but like generational trauma and just things before in our, past that I read this book, and if anybody hasn't read it, it's called Mother Hunger. It
Oh.
is an amazing book, and it is all about, the connection between the mother and the daughter and how if they're dealing with something in like as you were being created in the belly of your mom, that generational trauma is being transferred from her to you in womb, and then you're being born and then you're going through it, and until somebody breaks generational crisis, like you're feeling everything beyond generations in which you are even equipped to feel because you did, so it's like this is why it's so important to do that work, to
Yeah.
to just sit in it sometimes and question yourself, like, is this me feeling this or is this somebody else's feelings, right?
Yeah, and my therapist was, like, the first one, and I remember when she first told me this, I was like, and she's like, "But, like, scientifically, Dawn, like, your grandmother, when your
Yes.
mom was in utero, your mom, when she was a fetus, already had
Yeah.
all of her eggs. So,
Yeah.
literally, a trauma could be genetically and DNA handed down from your grandmother to your mother to then you." And I was like, "Oh," because I'm all for, like, I mean, I'm very intuitive, like, it's wild how much my intuition is, like, spot on, like, I wouldn't say I'm psychic, I'm just, like, I, like, pick up frequency like, I can see behind what people are saying, I can see people's intentions, I can, like
Yeah.
it's spooky how I know things before I should know them, like, it's just
Yeah.
weird, and half the time I don't share it because 'cause I'm like, "Ugh." But, um, but then I also, like, crave the, like, understanding of, like, what is the science behind things, because
Mhm.
I think, like, I mean I don't know why I'm like going to like creation or Big Bang, and I'm like, aren't they the same thing? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, is it a miracle? But like, there's still like science behind miracles. Anyway, I digress. I went off on a way big long tangent, but like understanding that like scientifically, like it's in your DNA. And I had
Yeah.
this wild, I wouldn't ever have thought to share this on the podcast, but I had this wild experience in therapy last week where me and my therapist do like a certain type of processing. It's like not, it's EMDR adjacent. She uses a whole bunch of different things, but I was like, "It's 14-year-old me." And then all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, wait, it's not me." And she's like, "Who is it?" And then it was like my mom, and then it was my grandma, and it was like morphing this
Yeah,
14-year-old person who I was, like, kinda, like, battling with, or that was, like, rejecting the 5-year-old me,
yeah,
which if anyone hasn't done this kind of work before, this is gonna sound so weird, but if you've kind of dove into this work, start to see, like, 5-year-old me was super vulnerable, 14-year-old me came up with, like, all the armor and the guarding and the walls and, like, "I'm not gonna get hurt anymore." And
yeah.
it was a really wild experience, and then when I said, "I don't know if it's my mom, I think it's my grandma," my eyes were closed and everything went hot pink, and I don't know what that meant. But it was, like,
Um,
bright hot pink. It was wild.
I have had so many of these experiences, and it's like it's funny because all of my friends who had kind of spiritual encounters or something, they'll come to me and they're like, I know I'm going to talk to you, Ash, because you just get it. You know, you just have that friend that's like, you're not going to think I'm crazy if I tell you this. So
Yeah.
it's like, no, I think like what ends up happening is when you're very aware, you're intuitive, honestly, you start being open to different frequencies around beyond this, beyond living, beyond, where we
Mm,
are right now. I think that that all correlates to coming back into your life and being appreciative and really, understanding life as a gift and really
mm.
being in touch with yourself so much that like, oh, I'm unaligned right now. Like something in
Yeah.
work doesn't feel right. I'm going to make adjustments because right now my heart is saying this isn't aligned. Right. And so I feel like that's all kind of intertwined, when you're seeing colors. And I had actually a dream very similar where it was butterflies. Like, I don't know. I feel like butterflies are like my spirit animal. My grandma's in a butterfly. It sounds weird, but like, I don't know. I'm into it. So,
Yeah. I
so
love it.
like, in my dream, it's like these butterflies opened and I just saw all these colors. And I was like, okay, this is me being able to see the world in colors in, a beautiful way, like looking at nature, looking at animals,
Mhm.
like having that appreciation, right? I think
Mhm.
it's I think it's when you're super aware and you're intuitive with yourself, you're able to like invite that energy in.
Yeah, and I mean, I lost touch. I wasn't really encouraged to tap into my intuition, which is funny because I grew up in, like, quite a, like, faith-based home.
Okay.
And you would think, like, being brought up in a faith, but it was still,
Yeah.
and I don't wanna say it was like my family, but like the community and what I perceived it as. I'm taking all ownership and responsibility of like not necessarily what I was taught, but how I received it and perceived it.
Mhm.
Was very black and white and not intuitive. Although like spirituality you would think is like very intuitive. So I kind of like, pushed it down. And then I got into abusive relationships where like I was gaslit, which before gaslighting was like a buzzword on the internet. I remember like I didn't know what gaslighting was in 2010.
Yes.
And like mentally, emotionally, and psychologically abused. I remember like praying that I would get hit in the face so people would know what was going on.
Yeah.
But I lost touch with my intuition and I lost trust in myself and like learning to develop self trust again, where it's like intuition doesn't make logical sense. Right, and
Mhm.
there's been so many times where I'm like, "This doesn't make any logical sense," and I have an intuition journal where whenever
Mhm.
I have, like, some sort of, like, gut feeling about something, I write it down, when and the date, and then I, like if it comes to be or doesn't come to be, I write down the date that it did,
Yeah.
so I can, like, build trust with myself and my intuition.
I love
Because
that. I mean, I can resonate so much with like the emotional abuse. I've been in so many previous relationships prior to my partner now.
Mhm,
And it was terrible. And the one thing that hits me is that I wasn't ever as connected to myself as I am when I'm in a healthy relationship because there's blocks. You are
mhm,
blocked at that point. You cannot see. You can't even, you can't feel your own emotions anymore because there's just so much around you that
mhm.
is chaos. And it feels like I'm the problem. I'm this, I'm that. But you're really actually just not the problem. It's just
Yeah,
that you might be just with you're probably with the wrong person. It took me so long to understand that
mhm.
thank goodness now I'm in such a healthy and loving relationship and we're just so communicative together. And he's like, I don't even introduce him as my boyfriend. I'm like, he's my partner. Like we are partners for life. Like this guy's my jam, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I love that, I love that. It really, like, when, when you haven't seen or experienced or witnessed a healthy relationship, you don't know what it is, and so you have no like, you have no template to follow.
No, exactly.
And so you follow a
Exactly.
template that maybe you've what you've perceived or what you've witnessed, and then you're like, "Well, maybe this is all it is," right? And that's
Right.
like even what like, I mean, we're talking about romantic relationships, but that can be like business models too. Like
Yeah.
maybe all you've ever witnessed is someone like push themselves to exhaustion and burnout, and so you think the only way to be financially successful is to be stressed out, pushed to the limit, burnt out all the time, because you never saw
Right.
someone like have work-life balance or be able to, and that's where I am currently where I'm like, okay, I only know how to go into workaholic mode, but I'm trying to
Mhm.
avoid that. But also it's like, am I avoiding it so much that I'm not pushing myself and like
Right.
trying to find that? And I wonder, so it's funny how we both are creatives, different fields, both have ADHD, both have like abusive relationships in our
Yep.
past. Why do you think there is? Because I know that also like people listening to this are like, oh yeah, check, check, check.
Yeah.
Why why do you think we all have this common thread?
Honestly, I feel
Light
like
question.
I know there's like it's such like a big question, but almost like an easy answer at the same time. I do
Mhm,
feel like people who struggle with this are high empathic people. They
mhm.
are generally people pleasers. They don't ever want to fail. They always want to please. They don't want to disappoint. That was like my whole life, like I never want to disappoint anyone, and even
Mhm.
receiving feedback, even in a work setting, you know, I have trained myself well enough to not take it as personally. Like I'm very open to receiving feedback, even when you gave me feedback, and you're like,
I
Ash,
already wrote that down that I wanna talk about that.
yeah. Like when you gave me feedback, I was like, you know what? I felt that. I was like, I felt that I could have been more upfront about about the expectation. If I couldn't
Mm.
meet the expectation, I should have been like, okay, I can't meet this, Dawn. But what ended up happening there, and I will be very candid,
So beautiful.
is that like I was afraid. Like I was just afraid to actually let you down. And that's
Mhm.
my personality, knowing I am a people pleaser. I am an empathetic, loving, caring human. I care so deeply about my clients. And it's one of those things where you're like, I don't want to let you down. Like I don't let anyone down. And in the interim, you're letting yourself down because
Yeah.
like
I always say you're
you're
not a people pleaser or people disappointer because 'cause you're deferring
yeah,
disappointment till later. Yeah.
yeah. And
But I
it's
wanted
just
to say like, to bring that back, like, we just launched my website, and even,
yeah.
like, there was, like, hiccups on the day that we launched, and I could tell, like we were just texting, but I could tell you were stressed, and I was like, "Ash, like, ain't no thing, like, it'll all work out, like, I've healed my nervous system, I'm not going in a fight or flight right now." Um, I think I was like, I was like, "I'm eating chips and drinking pop right now just at my computer, like, whatever." But on our final wrap-up call, you asked for feedback, and I was so impressed, one, because I remember having an exit interview at a salon I worked at, and my boss asked me, like, "Well, how could I have done things differently or better for you?" And I was like, "Well, to be honest," I gave some feedback, and then she rejected it. And that was really hard. And I mean, having ADHD, it's like a very well-known fact that like we are very rejection sensitive. And so anything, not even real rejection, but even if we perceive something as being rejecting, it's
Yeah.
like I have to like really check myself if like I feel like someone's like making fun of me or if someone's criticizing me. It's like it's taken a lot of work to like regulate those emotions. And so I was so impressed that when I tried to deliver it as best I could, so it wasn't a criticism but an awareness, and it wasn't a
Yeah.
big deal. But I felt like that moment like made our connection on our work relationship and friendship stronger because you heard
Yeah.
it and you were like, yeah, and you were able to own it without, because I think the
Yeah.
natural instinct is to get defensive because we don't wanna feel like we've let somebody down or upset someone or disappointed, where I'm like, "You haven't disappointed me. It's great. Like, I love my website. This is my constructive feedback, but, like, at
Yes.
the end of the day, it's great."
Yeah. And I mean, I know I really try my very best to always take feedback as okay. When somebody tells me their feedback, I'm like, okay, this is like I'm taking accountability for that because honestly, if it was something that I felt that was unwarranted or something, I would have said, okay, and then I would have kind of like expressed myself. But what
Yeah.
you were saying was, I was like, you know what? I felt that, and I own that. I own that. I can own that.
And I think
And
even like because I think I was talking about like date of launching, and I was like, I own the fact that I'm like, I didn't get shit to you on time. So
yeah,
I'm like, I also am taking responsibility over the part I played.
yeah,
But I think that's the thing is
and
like taking responsibility. And when people deliver feedback in a way, I mean, I was on YouTube today and looking at people commenting on like old videos of mine, and people are mean. Holy shit.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know. I think I cry so much. I'm a crier of that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know.
like when someone is kind and compassionate and gives grace, it's a lot
Yeah.
easier to receive feedback.
Well, and I think just talking about the feedback thing, I think that what ends up here that people really need to challenge themselves with hearing feedback is
Mhm.
how much of your ego is coming up here. Because, like, when you're accepting feedback and you're defensive and you're just aggressive and you're just like going at them, like, whoa, calm yourself and then like do a little deep breathe and say, okay, this isn't me. Like, this isn't
Mhm.
actually how I respond because you responding that way, it really is not you. You're not in your best aligned self. You are
Mhm.
actually from your ego, your shadow self, whatever you'd like to call it. And you're
Mhm.
not really, I really think about that. I don't respond aggressively. I always like to respond calmly because the conversation will go so much smoother and be so much more dynamic and constructive when you can actually just talk back and forth and be receptive and be open.
Mhm.
You know what?
Mhm.
Yeah. But this also requires a lot of compassion, empathy, understanding. And so people with ADHD or who are creatives generally have this quality, which means it can be very difficult for us to work with humans who don't necessarily have that quality or maybe are not dialed in or tuned in as much, right? Because
Mhm.
creatives are super dialed in with their awareness. That's how they create.
Yeah. And funny that we're so sensitive to people's feedback, and yet we're in fields that, like, we set ourselves up for constant
Criticize.
feedback. Yeah. But, like, also, I used to really seek external validation because I felt I mean, and this is I need to wrap up this podcast episode, but maybe we'll have you back talking about self-worth and self,
Oh,
self-esteem because
my God.
I was like a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Like, when you can't fill up your own cup, it just, like, fills and empties, and it feels good for half a second when you, like, go above and beyond for a client and you, like, you disregard your own boundaries, and then they shower you with praises. But I always say to my students, like, "How many times have you, like, stayed late or gone in on a day off, and your
Yeah.
client doesn't, like, profess their undying love for you, and you're like, "Bitch, please, like, you're supposed to be, like, showering me, like, this is the exchange. If I go above
Right.
and beyond, you tell me how amazing I am, I feel really
Yeah.
good in the moment." But when they don't, it's like, "Wait, what?" And then it's like, "Oh, what was my motivation to work like that?" And it's like I
Right.
was seeking external praise because I actually really struggle to think I'm worthy of it.
Right? Well, and this honestly, that's such a huge one. And like for me, I will say in business, like my primary driver isn't generally money. Like my primary
Mhm,
driver is heart and how I feel and
mhm.
how I am bringing value to that other. Like I'm more concerned about like let's make you money. Like
Right,
like
right.
I want to like, put all of my effort into scaling your business because that's where my heart kind of is. It's like I care so much. I want you to succeed. I want you to do so well. And that external validation sometimes like I have to check myself and be like, okay, like I'm not gonna work. It's like 9 o'clock at night. Like we're not doing this.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
and it's
shut
hard
it.
when you're self-employed.
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, it would be I don't know. I was just talking to this about my partner, and we were talking about the whole 9 to 5 and like how people, who are an entrepreneur are going back and taking the 9 to 5. And we've talked about this and kind of said like the 9 to 5, as much as it's like almost sometimes for entrepreneurs, it would be something that could be a cop out almost because deep down inside you have this fire that is like burning and you're like, I can't do that.
Mhm.
I need to create my own flexibility. I need to be able to get my kids on the school bus and have that,
Yeah.
never asking boss for, a sick day and all that sort of stuff. Right. So like, just like that awareness around that too.
I do say, like, I remember speaking at an event and saying, like, so many of us became entrepreneurs for the freedom of it. And how many of us feel like we have a ball and chain wrapped around our leg? Now we're working 24/7.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's that whole like, work for yourself and you'll never work another day in your life. And it's like, no, work for yourself and you'll work 24/7 for the rest of your life. But there is something to be said for being passionate about what you do. And I know for me, and it sounds like for you too, it's like, it's not about the actual craft we do because we are doing different things. It's about helping people. And I
yes,
feel like I have gone through ups and downs of getting disconnected with that and like getting like distracted by glitz and glam and money. But at the end of the day, it all comes down like, I know my purpose on this earth is to help other people in some way, shape, or form. And when
yeah.
I find that and connect with that, then like the motivation and the and everything else falls into place.
Absolutely. And also just being able to present yourself in a way that like aligns to your clients, right? Like I know
Mhm.
that's working on your stuff, and kind of getting in alignment with all of your offers, and you have so much to offer. Like even when I was looking and going through, I'm like, holy shit, Don, like
Too much. Too much
you got
fun.
babies and so much stuff. And I'm just like, let's align this, let's organize this so that,
Mhm.
the people that you truly want to help and resonate with are being able to find the stuff that's going to be relevant for them and help them.
Totally.
So that's one thing that I can definitely do well, I would say.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, as we wrap this up, like, can you share with it one, you're a fellow Canadian, which I love, and I
Oh,
found you
yeah.
through an American, Brit. We'll give Brit a shout out, World by Brit.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Right.
um, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? And is the, like, perfect client for you?
Oh my gosh, this is like actually probably the worst question ever to ask me because I'm like, I do this, do that. I don't know what I do half the time. But
Well, it
like,
says brand and website designer, so
yeah. So, yes, I'm Ashley, and obviously, I've helped on your website. I tend to really get into the nitty gritty of your brand. So, like, really understanding who you are. My care is really understanding who you are so that we can bring the right people to you and align your personality with their personality so that you're not putting yourself out there and working with people that you're just not aligning with, right? So,
Mhm,
that brings a whole lot of mess kind of sometimes that we just it's better to align with people who we just naturally jive with, right?
mhm.
So doing branding and kind of like designing your business around that sort of stuff, and then website design, obviously. This is like the worst question to ask me because just go to my website,
Yeah. She's
your designer.
a website and brand wizard.
Yeah, thank you.
And do you like working with other creatives?
Oh, I love working with other creatives, especially anybody who is a consultant, like in the business coaching industry, anybody in facilitating, like, self help, any therapy. That's kind of like my niche, right? Like,
Mhm.
generally, people who are invested in really, truly wanting to help others, serve others in a way that they can, feel good about themselves or get the care that they need. That is really those types of individuals really I align so much with. Like, we talked about Britt Carmichael. She's wonderful, beautiful energy. And she introduced you to me. So, that was amazing. Like any types of spiritual clients. I love that. Those people are my jam. Like I just
Yeah.
yeah.
Such a cool and small world. So where can people find you and connect with you?
So you can go to Your Designer Ash on Instagram or yourdesignerash.com. My website is still, I'm going to be rehauling my website, but my clients always take priority. So
It's like, go see the hairstylist that has the worst hair because they're too busy helping everyone else.
yes, that's me. Hi, it's me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was so awesome.
So happy to be here, and I just love our conversations in general anyway. So
Me too. This was fun to chat, and we didn't even have to chat anything about website.
I know, right? It was just great.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you guys make sure you go follow Ash, check her out, creep her, and let her know, shoot her a DM letting her know that you listened to this episode. Thank you so much, Ash, and we'll talk to you soon.